welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani, also on Twitter and Periscope. At Vin Armani is my handle there. You can check out all of our audio archives by going to activistpost.com, as we are proud members of the Activist Post podcast network. You can also check us out on the Liberty Radio Network. That's at lrn.fm. The Liberty Radio Network is on dozens of, actually hundreds of terrestrial radio stations, come to find out, as well as satellite and streaming on the internet. Once again, that's the Liberty Radio Network at lrn.fm. Well, it's Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time, and we are back with another great show, the last show, the last episode of the Vin Armani Show. I know, kind of surprised everybody, snuck up on you, but you know, it's good. Element of surprise, it's a good thing. We're going to talk about what's going on with that, what future plans are for myself, what future plans are for my co-host, and so we may as well just go ahead and just bring him on. As always, my co-host, good friend and producer, Mr. Christian Reyes. Christian. Oh,
hey, Vin.
Hey, dude. So, yeah, man. Last show. Show. I've got some screen going over here that's like blowing me up. Let me close that.
Oh,
okay,
shit.
good. Yeah, it's just like shining light on me. No good.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the last show. People were like, what? I don't even understand. I had been thinking about it for a while. And just I had thought, well, how much longer can we go, really? And then we reached the point where I looked at the calendar and I saw that there were no guests scheduled. We hadn't scheduled any guests. And I think some of that is, the same individuals who have been helping with the show and who help with counter markets also happen to be involved with Cointext as a project, which is something that I've really enjoyed. One great part about doing the show is it's brought together a team of people, and we've all worked on all these projects together in various different forms and various different teams of us, and it's like we all know that we can trust each other, and it's you, and it's the guys at Activist Post, and it's the people at Counter Markets, and now the people with Cointext, and it's like that's been one of the best parts about this whole experience.
Absolutely.
But I looked at the calendar and I was like, there's no more guests after Naomi Brockwell. And then some things, I don't know how deeply I even want to get into this, but then it was like some things were happening in the world that I had, I think in part because of this show, involved myself in. Or either by choice and also just by kind of default as well. And those things forced me to sort of re-examine my overall actions and my overall communication with the public. Let's put it like that, right? Something that I'm conscious of, having been on TV. And so it was like, is this the right way to continue to communicate with the public? This particular forum. Now we've got a lot of different forums that we use, you and I and the other people involved with the show, right? This has been one that I think was super timely when we did it. But a lot has happened, right? Alex Jones getting banned. Dude. Social media has changed. Go ahead.
It seems like everything has changed in the last 2 months, let's say. I mean, everything in terms of like the media and the ideas that are coming forward. And I don't really know what to think of it. I do know that in order to create something new, you have to get rid of something that's old. So this is a constant cycle of creation and destruction happening at the same time. So you don't really like it's change. That's what it is. Like what we're feeling is change, and like we don't really know how to predict exactly what's coming with this and is it really good. But I do think that it is good. I think that the destruction of what the old paradigm is good. And I do think that it's only making room for the new paradigm to come in, the new culture, I guess you would say, or whatever you would like to call it. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's something that, that crypto savage culture, that idea of this new
Hmm.
emergent culture is something that definitely, I think, emerged very much from doing this show. I mean, my book Self
Yeah.
Ownership is very much emerged, many of the thoughts emerged from, getting a chance to sit with you every week, go over what
Mm.
was happening in the world, how the world was changing. I mean, you think about where we started with the show, and like the genesis of the show was basically, um, I had started doing these rants,
Right.
at, and a lot of it was because I had this crazy incident that happened with the city of Las Vegas, which I
Hmm.
ended up having to fight for like years, and just only recently, like in April, got it's such a ridiculous situation, but it laid bare a lot of the things that I already believed about the state and
Hmm.
understood and thought was the reality, and it laid bare so many things to be like, wow, I actually like went through one of the most craziest and ridiculous things I could possibly imagine. People who are counter market subscribers have read the story. If you want to read the
Yeah.
story and understand, it's in two parts in counter markets. That's where I chose to share it, and I started doing these rants. And the folks at Activist Post reached out to me, and they were like, "Man, we've been watching you do these rants. Got a libertarian anarchist rants, not very long, just talking about things that were
Hmm.
going on." And it was in the context of the election was happening at the time,
Right.
right? The very first rant that I did, and people can go and check these out on my YouTube. It's in the Let's Talk Anarchy play, or Let's Talk, what is it? Let's Talk Liberty playlist. And you can just scroll. There's some of the first things. The very first one I did, the title was Legalizing Marijuana Will Make You Less Free.
Hmm.
And it was it was again one of those kind of Vince Stradamus things, to where I was like, look, here's the principle. Here's the principle. Let's kind of move forward. And they reached out to me and they were like, hey, we're setting up this podcast network, right? Activist Post Podcast Network, which has been going on this whole time now.
Hmm.
And would I like to do a podcast? And I said, I don't really know if I want to do a podcast, but I have this idea for like a multi-camera show with like some kind of high production value, like higher than
Yeah.
what was mostly at the time, and it was just an idea, and they were like, oh, that I guess that kind of sounds interesting. And it was like a day later that I reached out to you, and I was like, hey man, I kind of got this idea for a show to do. And you didn't
Yeah.
even skip a beat. You didn't even skip a beat. You were just like, oh yeah, I'm in.
Yep.
And I knew that at that time some of these ideas were like not they were not really things that you had encountered. And I remember telling you, I was like, dude, don't even look them up. Don't even, because I figured like, what better way to really know if we're hitting this and we're explaining it than if you're here and you're able to like, and so I
Natural.
yeah, I mean, I'm really super interested actually. I don't know if you've thought about this week. I don't know if you want to share or whatever, but I mean, on that note, first off, thank you so much for like, dude, week in and
Thank
week
you.
out, you've been like you've been here. Uh, I'm appreciative. The audience is appreciative, and I'm interested to hear. I've had such a journey, right, in this whole
Yeah.
thing, and a literal journey, because I'm sitting in New
Uh,
Hampshire right now, right?
yeah,
And
seriously.
and
It's
part of
crazy.
me even were it not for the show, I guarantee you I wouldn't be in New Hampshire, because
Hmm.
I wouldn't have sort of put myself into the scene, which is where the libertarian scene, and it was at like Anarchapulco, which was we started in October 2016. Anarchapulco was February of 17. So just a few months in, 4 months in, that I went to Acapulco, and that was when I encountered all the two main Free Staters, Matt Phillips, the president of the Free State Project, and Ian Freeman, who's the host of Free Talk Live, and a big activist here, who was when it got on my radar. Um, So I know that my journey has so much of it has been in this last year. I'm interested to hear
Hmm.
like your thoughts as you've had them over the last,
Yeah,
week or however.
it's been a wild ride, man. And the first thing that comes to mind is I'm extremely grateful for everything, for you, for the audience, for the people that have, you know, supported us, for the people that have engaged with us and started understanding really where we're going with this thing. And then the second thing that comes to mind is the idea of the revolution of the individual.
Mm,
So really looking, instead of looking outward and seeing like, I love the meme that you put up, kill the noise, hear the signal.
mm,
Really looking, instead of looking outwards as into politics, into everything that's going on in the world, looking inwards and then basically projecting that outwards instead of taking in the outside and projecting inwards. So the best way to really simplify that would be the revolution of the individual.
mm,
And I think that's, for me, I really knew nothing about. I had the same philosophies and ideas going on in my head. I just didn't really know what to call them in terms of libertarianism, in terms of voluntarism and anarchist ideas. But going through the show really opened my eyes to all of that stuff in a major way, and then opened my eyes to how, because I was already into like psychology and communication and things of that nature, and spirituality, but I really didn't see how the dots connected
mm.
until I started doing the show. And then come fast forward, till this point. Now I'm in a position to actually embody those dots being connected, like really start like now understanding the technology, understanding what's going on with cryptocurrency, what's going on with all those this new world, starting to really connect the dots and embody it. And I think this, ending the show like this is a great move because we can really, really, really act those things out and spend all of our time and energy doing that instead of talking about it or instead of like, you know, um, kind of exposing it, which is a great piece of the puzzle, but it's just, it's like the second phase it's like the phase right before embodiment,
Hmm.
you know?
That was one of the
So,
things that the Alex Jones thing brought up for me in a big way, right? I think that
yeah.
if we look back at Alex Jones, it's like, you know, did his show maybe go too long? You know,
Right.
I think up to the point where he like, I mean, he opened so many people's minds, along with David Icke, who we've had on the show, right? Along with G. Edward Griffin, and it's like, um, Alex Jones going to Bohemian Grove and getting that footage of the owl and the cremation of care
Right.
ritual and everything, of him
Mm.
going to the Bilderberg meetings and calling people out, of him doing those things. That was huge for opening people's eyes. But
Yeah.
and David Icke the same way. But then it's this question of like, okay, and what?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And what?
And now you got to take that information and you got to really start embodying that information and being that information, acting it out. And then, I mean, there comes a time where you can be the messenger for so long, and then
Hmm.
you really just need to understand that you are the message and the messenger at the same time, you
Hmm.
know? And and for me, like that point came really when we started doing the show, but it when it really hit me was when we started doing the BCH meetups and when we
Hmm.
started doing like, and you can see what's opening up, you know?
Hmm. Yeah,
And
that's I think that's from the beginning of the show. This show has always, interestingly enough, right? I don't think we necessarily started this show thinking that it was a cryptocurrency show, right?
right.
Thinking that it was a Bitcoin show. But, energy moves as energy is going to move. You don't like, oftentimes things are fated, they're chosen for you. And our
Hmm.
first guest ever, and also the guest that we have had on the show more than any other guest, who had more appearances in our 90 episodes than anybody else, is Lynn Ulbricht. She was the first person on the show, right? Mother of Ross Ulbricht. And, you know, it's funny because, like, yesterday, there was a tweet that I saw. Somebody had tweeted, "Oh, we didn't need Silk Road. We didn't need Mount Gox. Something we could do this all our own, and we'll do it the same." And a lot of people responded, but one person was like, "What are you talking about? Silk Road made Bitcoin." And it's true. Silk Road it was the first marketplace. Anybody who's really being honest, Ross Ulbricht Satoshi Nakamoto created Bitcoin, but the demand for Bitcoin was not until the Silk Road. And that's what he's in jail being punished for right now. It's not about drugs. It's not about Tor. It's not about a website. It's about Bitcoin.
Yep.
They were trying to stop Bitcoin because of the manifesto of the Silk Road, the charter that's complete libertarian free marketeer, with the use of cryptocurrency, and they took down Mount Gox at the same time because they saw the real threat that it was to manipulated money, to the hegemony of the current elite class, that it really could release the shackles from people. And it's so interesting that it's like we started there. The show started there. That's our first guest. And I mean, from the beginning, you know, I said, look, here, so the three technologies, I was like, it's cryptocurrency, small scale, high yield, agriculture, and mesh networks. And we've had on, you know, the Jack Spirkos and Curtis Stones and the people from Aquaponics Source. And like, we've gone down the road as well of this, high yield, small scale agriculture. I just yesterday, I mean, and this is what's crazy, man. Talk about a journey, right? And then talk about being I think this is where the vehicle comes in, right? And it solidified to me yesterday. Yesterday I'm driving out to a Liberty Market that I go to on the last Sunday of the month, private cryptocurrency market, farmer's market. I go there to pick up from the farmer, organic, local farmer, that I get my meat and my vegetables. You know, I do community-supported agriculture, all paid for in cryptocurrency. Right?
Awesome.
And on the way there, I'm having a phone call with a very big, well-known, important developer within Bitcoin Cash community, talking about all of this like internal drama that's going on with N-Chain and this potential fork and blah blah blah, which that's a lot talking about noise, right?
Yeah.
Talking about noise. And then I show up at this spot, and it's families there, you know, other free staters, free market set up. I'm buying, you know, I get my cider, I get my lunch, I pay for that in Dash. You know, I'm looking around at the things, talking with people who have become my friends, have some conversations about cryptocurrency and whatnot. No drama, but everybody's using crypto there. And then I go and I pay for my food, you know, all my meat for the month and my vegetables, fresh, organic vegetables from a local farmer, and I pay in Bitcoin Cash. And I'm like, no, see, this is it.
Yeah.
This is signal right here.
Right.
Like, here it's happening. None of you people who are so concerned over these things about block size and this and that, I say, my question is, what was the last food that you bought with cryptocurrency? Because that's signal.
Right.
See, what was the last real use you had? That's what Silk Road was. See, Silk Road wasn't noise. You couldn't even get to Silk Road unless you had Tor installed and you knew the exact address, which was a long string. It wasn't like silkroad.com. No.
Yeah.
And it changed. That's signal. And signal is the only thing that's powerful.
Yeah,
Noise doesn't direct you anywhere.
doesn't. Yep. And going back to one of the episodes recently, actually, where we talked about the problem with crypto right now is that people are on social media and they're talking.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens with that is like people will be talking and they get their signal from talking.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Like they get their fulfillment, they get their rush, they get their motivation, they get their everything that moves them forward from putting something on social media or talking about something, or and then they see how everybody responds, and once they get that dopamine rush,
Mm-hmm.
you know, from that, then they start to want to signal, or they start to want to um talk again.
Well, I
And
think
that's the cycle that it's in.
it's a confusion of signal for noise, right?
Right,
So
right, right. Noise.
so
Yeah,
so
noise.
you so you get the either one can give you dopamine. Like that's the weird thing.
Crazy.
And sort of the way that I would phrase it is that it's something like the difference between, or it's something like the reward that you get from, let's say, a video game,
Hmm.
right? The sense of
Yeah.
satisfaction of like you're in World of Warcraft and like, oh, I'm gonna do this, or you're playing whatever game
Hmm.
and you accomplish something within the game, and you get your body real. It can't tell the difference between the
Right.
game that you're playing and like a real reward in life that it's actually would have rewarded your biological ancestors who
Right.
developed that reward system within their biology. It can't tell the difference. It thinks, oh, you really did that.
Hmm.
Here's your dopamine hit.
Yep.
And you can survive off that and derive meaning from that.
Hmm.
But the problem is, and we evolved in a state where there wasn't the high level of noise that we have,
Yeah. Yeah.
where our reward systems are based on how our ancestors, hundreds of thousands of years would have lived. Probably before people could even speak. I mean, our reward systems, I think people would argue that, Jordan Peterson would argue, that our
Hmm.
reward systems in that regard, like our serotonin
Hmm.
based reward systems and our dopamine based reward systems, extend back to like crustaceans. That's the whole
Hmm.
lobster argument, right? That's the lobster argument that he's making, that everybody makes fun of. Oh, you're saying have our society like the lobsters. That's what he's saying. These systems are that old,
Right.
and we're playing around with them. And social media does it so well.
Yeah, social media is really it's crazy when it comes to that. And the thing is, like, I realized, and I think I talked about it on one of the previous shows too, is that happiness really is it's a reward system.
Mm-hmm.
And the crazy thing about that type of like, if you look at it, it's really the embodiment of just a different thing, right? Just a thing that an embodiment of something that is not really effective in terms of what we want to
Mm-hmm.
do. And the people that are doing those things and participating in those things are happy doing that because they're getting rewarded from that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But it's what we realize is like it's not really effective. And that's I think we kind of came to this at the same time. It's like with the show is very effective in getting people the information that they need,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not really effective in getting them, which nothing outside would be effective for doing that because it's the revolution of the individual. So like what needs to happen is like people just needed to discover that for themselves. And I think that for both of us, that's kind of what it came down to is we discovered that for ourselves, like the effectiveness and the things that make me happy and probably you happy as well is actually embodying it to the fullest level, to
Mm-hmm. I don't. I mean, I think so. Maybe I'll start with this because this is something that I've been thinking about, and this is an
Mhm.
incident that was burned into my memory. Sometimes you have those incidents in your life, those moments that are
Yeah.
like that are burned into your memory, and it's for some reason, but you can't really like that it was a significant moment or somebody said something and it was significant, but you maybe can't even really put your finger on it until a long time later. This was one that happened to me probably over 10 years ago, because it happened to me when I was like involved in sort of the seduction scene, the pickup artist scene in LA. So I kind of know the time frame. It was probably around 2006, 2007. And a guy that I met sort of within that community, older than me, significantly at the time. He was in his 40s. German guy by the name of Gerald. If you're out there, Gerald, thank you. A great mentor in this regard. Was actually a like certified NLP, neuro-linguistic programming master, right? And so did seminars and whatnot, but for some reason, I don't know what he saw in me particularly at the time, but like for some reason sort of took on a mentor role with me. And you know, every once in a while, every few months, we'd go and we'd have a couple of drinks, and I would just tell him what was going on with me, and you know, he'd talk with me. And it was at the same time that I was also you know, I was working on my own projects. Had just sold one of my first businesses and was navigating that as well. And so it was very, very helpful. And there was just a moment I remember, and I remember it so vividly. I remember where I was, where we were. We were sitting at the bar at Lola's on Fairfax in Hollywood, drinking martinis, and he said to me, and it's something that seared in my mind, and I was like, yeah, that's true, but I didn't really get it. Like, it sounded good, but I was like, oh, but what is it? But I just got it this week. And what he said to me is, he said, you know, as a man matures, he goes from wanting to have a life of success to wanting to have a life of significance. And I've carried that around, and I've said it to a few people, and there have been times when it's come up, and I've been like, what does that mean? Right? Because like I would have success, and then sometimes the success in and of itself wouldn't be rewarding as I thought that it maybe should be. And I was like, oh, well, maybe this is what he's talking about. Maybe this is what he's talking about. And this week, though, I think I figured it out. And it goes to, I think, what you were just talking about in terms of who can we be and who are we when we do this show, as opposed to expand, like, who could we be and what could we be doing. And I think that what it is this, like, I kind of did a Christian Race thing. Like, I went for what's the meaning of these words, right? I really, because it's, for some reason it popped back out at me. Because I was thinking, oh, what would I talk about on the show? And this thing popped back out at me all of a sudden. I was like,
interesting.
What? I wonder why I'm thinking about that.
Yeah.
Right, why? And so I looked up the meaning of the words, right? And so the root of the word success is the same root word as succeed, which means basically to come after, right? So this is like the opposite of preceding. Preceding means to come before. Succeeding means the thing that comes after. And so how it started to be used in the English language was they would start it and they would say it's a result. It means result. So like in the 1600s, they would start to say to have a good success, meaning a good result.
Good result.
And then it eventually came out as just, you'd say, to have success, to be successful. Right? So it means the thing that comes after. So it's an example of a good result. So someone who is a success, or you look to as, oh, they're a success, what you're looking at is you're looking at the result of something.
Right.
And they've got a good result. They're a successful person, they've had a good result. Okay. What does significance mean? Right? And it's the same thing as signify. It's the same as sign. Signal. It's the same thing, but it actually means something that is a harbinger or a forebringer. It's something that comes before.
Cause.
So it's like, well, it's not even that. It's like, if you see a sign, right, which is the same root as significant, which is the same root as signal, If you see a sign that says exit ahead, the sign
Yeah.
comes before the exit,
Right.
right? It says, here it is, it's 2 miles from here. The
Hmm.
sign for the event, the sign is before, right? Oh, that's a sign that spring is on its way.
Yeah.
And so,
Love it.
and a sign leads you. A
Hmm.
sign helps you find your way.
Hmm.
And so I finally understood what Gerald meant. He was saying, you go from wanting a life where people look at you as an example of that you've done all these things and it's an example that you've had a good result, to
Hmm.
you go to wanting a life where people look at you as a map to get to where they want to get,
Hmm.
as a sign, as
Ah.
something that they can follow so
Hmm.
that they can get there. Not just so that they could look at you for your accomplishments and worship you and put you on a pedestal. No,
Hmm.
no, so that they don't even look at you that way. So that they look at you as like, oh, this is like a mentor, right? This is somebody
Hmm.
who moved me along. And I felt, and this is something that I saw because of the things that are happening in this. And what's weird is it's a lot of noise, right?
Yeah.
Because the financial press doesn't see the things that are going on in BCH. The actual merchants who are out there
Hmm.
using it don't see the things that are going on behind the scenes, nor do they care. The exchanges don't see it as of yet, although if anything really happens, they'll have to choose ticker symbols, but they'll do that at the time. There's
Yeah.
nothing to do right now about that. They don't care. And so what I saw in all of this was I was like, I had predicted, and I had predicted on this show. And so this is one reason that got me thinking about the show, right? I'd predicted 2 months ago all the things that were going to happen.
Crazy.
But just as much as I had been predicting things along the whole way that we're doing this show. And then people were like, oh, wow, it's amazing. Vin predicted this, and everybody like called him a bullshit artist, or they said,
Hmm.
they disparaged him for this. They blocked him. They did all of this. And I got a little ego boost about that. I was
Hmm.
like, see, yeah, I was right. I was right, yeah. And then I was like, and? What? And? Actually, actually, what the fuck was I doing?
Hmm.
Like, I could have actually, I saw it coming. I saw it coming, and what I wanted to be was I wanted to be right. I wanted to make this prediction, and it's like, ha, look, Vinstradamus, I told
Yeah.
the future, here you go, ha, appreciate me, give me my ego boost for predicting the future. Okay, but that's not changing the future in a positive way for everybody. I had to ask myself, which would I rather? Would I rather everybody knew that I predicted something shitty was about to happen? Or would I rather nobody knew that I had predicted it, but that I knew that I had done my best to prevent it? And sometimes the
Hmm.
only way to prevent it is for people to not know what the fuck it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Wow.
the only way to get shit done.
Hmm.
You can't let people know what the hell it is that you're doing, especially when
No.
when part of what you're doing is trying to introduce ideas to them that they may think themselves unopposed to in the first place.
Yep. And part of that too is like if you do introduce it to them, you get that dopamine rush, you get
Sure.
that, and it actually slows down your momentum from what I've seen.
Yes.
Like tremendously slows down your momentum. And then you have almost the opposite of momentum, which is pressure,
Mm-hmm.
because now you gotta really live up to that idea, and like it's got to be the thing that is so explosive, and you're like, fuck, I just kind of shot myself in the foot. And I think it's better to just work quietly
Mm-hmm.
and let the work speak for itself, you know?
Or at least I think part of it was also spending this last month and a half, setting up our office here in where
Hmm.
I'm the only one because the other two, my other two partners are in separate states. But it was like
Yeah.
setting up the office here, getting sitting down, refactoring our code, getting it, rebuilding it from scratch, getting back into the flow and the vibe of full-time software development. And it is that. It's like going in every day. It's not like I'm the only one touching the code.
Yep.
It's not like it's complete self-motivation, self-discipline. I'm laying out what the architecture is. I'm doing all of these things. Going in and sort of getting those rewards within myself for things that I know other people will never see.
Yeah.
But that they will experience in their user experience, but they won't know what's happening. They won't know the work that went in. And it's like, well, that to me is better.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Then then what? You know what I mean? Yeah, of course there are assholes in cryptocurrency. There's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake, and there's absolutely no barrier to entry. It's gonna be that. But it's like to get down in the mud with those individuals, to get down in the muck and try to one up them or whatever. Does that get us any closer to what we expressed that we had started to do this show for in the first place?
Yep. And that's really interesting that you had mentioned that, because I found something I discovered, and I think it's very, very right on for this show, and going to what this show really stands for, and also too how to extend these ideas, not just the show, but these ideas that any individual will believe in, or I'm going to speak for myself as an individual, but an idea that I want to start to spread or start to get other people aware of. I found something that was incredibly powerful with marketing, incredibly powerful. And it started to open my mind a little bit about where this can go with belief systems and energy, the energy behind it, the belief systems behind it, the ideas behind it, and with anything. So the basic principle is this. If I'm a libertarian and I wanted to talk about these libertarian ideas and get people aware of these ideas, I would typically want to speak with somebody that's already kind of on the same page with me, already mostly there. So in other words, if I wanted to go and market work from home business, I'm going to go and market to people that were interested in work from home.
Sure. Yeah. That's your clear demographic. Yeah.
Right. But what I found was it's actually more effective to go and market an idea or go and expose an idea that's somebody that's almost there, not quite. So in other words, instead of marketing this idea to work from home people, I would go and market this idea to women that just had a baby.
Right.
I would go and market an idea to kids that are just getting ready to go to college, or kids that are maybe even getting out of college, because they're right there. They're almost there, but they don't really have the information yet to make that choice of this is what I want to do. So with libertarianism and with this freedom culture, the people that, I guess you can say, to really expose this idea to the people that would need it most. And it's almost the opposite of that. So it's the most chained people. It's the people that are in the left-right paradigm of arguing with each other. And guess what? They're tired of that shit.
Right.
So going to a hardcore Republican and saying, I'm interested in what your ideas are. What would you like to change? What can you change about that? And then you can start to slowly introduce the idea of libertarianism and freedom, and really they're going to have to discuss. Basically, you're just leading it so they can discover it for themselves, and it goes right in.
I think that there's a lot there's a lot there, man. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. It's funny because that was actually like that was a big thing for me thinking about this show and then thinking about like what we could do next.
Right.
And I feel like a lot has happened within even the last 2 months where like and I mean we'll do a shameless plug because I feel like this is exactly the type of this is the type of crossover that we're talking about, right? So the shirts that you did with Dustin is involved with this design, right?
Yeah.
So this
Yeah,
is
absolutely. It's his design.
Yeah, it's Dustin Dryfirst from Did You Know Crypto. His design. Christian put it together. They're doing a collabo on this. If you want to go ahead and throw those shirts up, print guns, not money.
Love it.
It's got the picture of the Liberator. Keep calm and print on. For Cody Wilson, you know, who's also censored the same time as Alex Jones. Keep calm and print on. We've got that one there. Print guns, not money.
With a dollar sign instead of the crypto.
Print guns, not money. Where can people get those? governyourself.com. GVRNURSLF.com, along with a bunch of other shirts. I'm wearing a decentralized shirt today. Somebody sent this over. Got the
That's Nathan's, right? Is it Nathan?
Yes, Nathan did send this.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, who has been on the show. I didn't want to go through and do like a whole like I knew I'd forget important people. I was trying to not name anybody, right, who's been on the show. But I do want to say thank you to everyone who's been on the show in terms of guests. It's like, wow. People should just go back and just go through the guests that we've had on this show. I think that anybody who's going back to look at this political movement during this time, that's it. Like, we've had everybody. I mean, you can go from, like, I mean, we've had biggies like Ron Paul. You know what I mean? We've already mentioned some of the others. To some people who you might not have even, like, ever known, who were personal friends of mine, but got some of the best responses on the show. And we introduced so many concepts, you know?
Every week, for me, it was listening into the guests and the content of the show. Like, I had to go and listen to episodes over and over again too, because every time I listened to them, even being on it, every time I listened to it, I got more and more. So, and I'm just like, I'm super grateful for this whole run. It's been
well, I mean, to go with like where to go next. I think those shirts are such a great example of where to go next, right? And it's like, how do you bridge the gap? How do you bridge the gap? And especially in the places where you might not think you could bridge the gap. Right? So, like, here's this opportunity. Here's this very, like, coherent moment when, look, you could wear print guns, not money. And you could wear that to a gun show. And there would be some hardcore Second Amendment, maybe even some people who've got, like, a thin blue line decal on their car who are like, I'm down with that. I'm down with that. That's a place to start talking.
Yep. And the people who are not down with it too. The people like
it's fine.
And that's really where the communication comes in. And I started to realize, like, getting an idea across is for somebody else to discover for themselves. Is really about honoring their communication and not putting up a fight against their belief system. Because really what they're doing when they start to, like, get aggressive and argue with you is they're challenging their own belief system. So you can just lay it out there for them. And, you know, you can walk with your truth and walk, like, know what you believe is right for you. And then expose, like, this whole chaos that's going on, all the noise that's going on in the politics right now is tremendously great.
It's been great that's part of what started this show. That's part of what made me realize that a change was on the way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I had already done, like, the Ascendant Project before we knew that it was going to be Trump and Hillary for president. I had felt this coming in many ways, you know, and like there's documented proof. You could go and like watch the Ascendant Project and you could see, like, I'm talking about a lot of like sensing that there's a shift at hand, like something is coming. And I have a very good idea, and I feel like a very good understanding of like what that shift is, even more so now. Even at that time, and I've been involved in Bitcoin for years at that point. Even at that time, I didn't realize that, oh yeah, this Bitcoin thing, like, that it's more than this magic internet money. Like, it's this model of human consciousness. It's a model of economics, of market forces, of preferences, of psychology, of sociology.
Culture.
It maps onto religion. It does all of this, and it's like, if for nothing else, the next part of this journey for me is really exploring that. Is really exploring what is this Bitcoin thing? Because we really don't know where it begins and where it ends, how deeply it extends into like the physical meat space. You know, I don't think Satoshi Nakamoto, I know Satoshi Nakamoto couldn't have predicted the culture that's emerging out of it. And it's a real culture with real, well, shit. CNBC is about to do, I'm gonna watch this tonight. I never watch CNBC, but they're gonna do a special tonight. Bitcoin, I think it's called Bitcoin Boom or Bust or something like that.
Oh shit!
This very slick, highly produced, the folks at Fast Money, and basically what they're doing is they're like introducing the culture. You got to go and check out this trailer, the trailer that they did.
Yeah, I gotta see that.
And it's like, it starts out with like, you know, the host, I forget her name, the Asian woman who's the host of Fast Money. She's like, HODL. It's the most important acronym in the world of Bitcoin, and it means, or in the world of crypto, it means hold on for dear life, which is totally wrong, by the way. That's totally wrong. It doesn't mean that at all. It was just a misspelling.
It was a misspelling
on Bitcoin Talk because the dude was drunk. Like the place where it showed up, you know, and he was like, I tried typing that 5 times, but I'm drunk and all of this. It was just a misspelling. But like so many memes, like Pepe the Frog. And I feel like that may have been our Pepe moment. That may have been the culture's Pepe moment. And tonight, I think, you know, they interview. I don't know if it's the crypto kid on Twitter who's at the crypto KIDD that they interview, but they interview somebody crypto kid. I don't know if it's him because the person crypto kid has like a little, I think it's like a little lynx or something as his. But this dude's like in like one of those spirit animal things with the paws. He's got the paws and he's talking and he's like living in a tree house and all of this, and he's talking about hodling and all this, and it's like, interesting. Interesting, because this is going to appeal to a certain, the interesting part about it is that's going to appeal to a certain segment of the population. There's going to be a certain group of millennials who are going to be like, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. Never mind if they dig in. If they dig in and they see, oh, it's kind of like 4chan, and like, here's all this. Never mind when they find Daniel Krawitz and they're like, oh, the leading cryptocurrency philosopher is a furry. You know what I mean? It's like, it's I think we're on the cusp of something really, really big. And I want to be significant, not successful. Like, I want to figure out, and I think you and I have all the tools, you know? Yeah. And maybe there are so many people here in New Hampshire who want you to move here, but maybe we could at least get you to visit, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
So, but because I think that part of it is, there's something to be said for, one, seeing people in person, and I think, two, when it comes to cryptocurrency, to coming to a place and like, there are people here who live on cryptocurrency.
That's
Lots
amazing.
of them too, like not just a small amount. And there are people who make almost all of their money in terms of their businesses accepting cryptocurrency.
Hmm.
And it's one thing to be shouting at people on Twitter and to be getting the sort of social validation and the dopamine hit from talking about it.
Yep.
But most of those people talking about it are not actually using it and spending it. And I know that because a few of them are. A few of them are. But I know that
Hmm.
most of them aren't because I'm interacting with these people.
Right.
And something changes. Something changes when it's made real, when it's not just a discussion on Reddit.
Hmm.
When it's real people and it's real food and it's real goods and it's real alcohol and it's real clothes and it's real services and it's the whole nine, something changes. There's something that cannot be like you everything else is artificial until it's like tangible, you know?
Hmm.
That's
That's
true for
actually
so much.
why if you look at a sales presentation, like if you go to the mall and somebody's selling, like
Mhm.
at a kiosk, they're selling like
Mhm.
lotions and stuff, that's actually why they hand you the thing to hold it. Because you're like, now it's mine,
Mhm.
now it's part of me. And I think it's the same thing that happens with crypto when somebody actually uses it. They're like, now it's a part of me. Now it's
Mhm.
mine. Now it's something that I understand and so instead of just an idea floating around in space.
And it's that exchange of value, right?
Hmm.
It's that exchange of value, and there's something very big to be said. I mean, I'm thankful with with my book Self Ownership that I did make the decision to
Oh,
only
dude,
sell it
yeah.
for cryptocurrency, and the number of people who have said to me, "Oh, you're to buy this book is the reason why I got my first Bitcoin. Like you're the
Hmm.
reason why I got my first Bitcoin was to buy this." Nothing has been more rewarding to me that I've gotten from our audience than that. And I mean, and
Hmm.
that's another reason why taking this time off the table, which is Sunday preparing, and then we do the show. I only have so much mental bandwidth. We all do,
Hmm.
and doing this show requires it requires a lot. People would be
Oh, yeah.
surprised. People would, I mean, well,
What's involved?
I mean,
Yeah.
you're here with me. It's it's a lot. People would be
Hmm.
surprised to do a live show, to pull it off in the way that we pull it off. It's not easy. I mean,
Hmm.
even just in terms of setup, and just getting everything rocking, and by the time we're done, I mean, it's by the time we're done with the 2 hour show, it's 3 o'clock here on the East Coast,
Hmm.
and I'm done for the day. I'm
Yeah,
not going to
pretty
be,
much with me too.
yeah, I'm not going to be writing. I'm not going to be. I mean, I can do some mundane tasks. I
Hmm.
can cook. I can clean up. I can go run errands. I can do shit like that. But I'm not going to be doing anything on the creative tip.
Hmm.
My brain is just I've had enough. The bandwidth is gone, and it's like that's true with Sunday getting ready for the show too. So having those days back to actually do creative things, whether that is coding, and working on coin text, that's a lot. I mean, going from basically 4 days to 5 days a week,
Yeah, it's a
that's
lot.
that's almost an extra week per month. That's between 3 and 4 work months
Yeah, yeah.
in a
Hmm.
year. That's a lot
It's a
in a
lot.
year. That's a
It's a lot.
lot.
It's a lot, man.
And so that's going to enable me to write this next book. And another interesting part of doing this, if were it not for the show, there's no way that self ownership would have came up at all. And when I did self ownership, I kind of felt like this is not like a this is not a completed piece. I feel like this is part of a bigger thing, and
Trilogy or something.
mainly that was because I was learning more.
Hmm.
And like by the time I finished the book, by the time was actually selling the book, there were already things that I thought, oh, I probably could have put that into the book, right?
Absolutely.
So I was thinking, oh, I'm gonna write like 2 more books. But then what was weird was, and I don't. Then people started for some reason coming back across my book Tao of the Gigolo from 2011,
Mm-hmm.
and talking about like, oh man, this is life changing, and I was like, interesting, but it makes sense that like Tao of the Gigolo, a lot of it is about some people are like they kind of laugh and get, oh, it's about like being a gigolo or whatever. Well, what it's about is it's about value.
Mm-hmm.
And it was me trying to answer the question. It basically comes from this. I started doing this show called Gigolos,
Mm-hmm.
right? Before that, I was a gigolo. Like that was a straight male escort. Like women were paying me to go out on dates with them.
Mm-hmm.
But I was also doing software development. It wasn't like a huge thing. It was a very niche group. So maybe once or twice in a month at that time, before the show, I would have a date. It wasn't something that I could like quit my day job as a developer,
Right.
or that I even would want to. And then, then the show came along. And then after the show, like my bookings really picked up. Clearly, it was like, that's great marketing. Oh, you're on a TV show, right?
It's kind of going back to that concept too of exposing. It probably exposed a lot of women that were just quite there,
Mm-hmm.
that just wanted to, like maybe they just got out of a divorce or things of that nature, and they were just quite there with that idea, and they needed that little push, and it exposed them to that, and then all of a sudden, boom.
Well, even knowing that it existed.
Mm-hmm.
Because I
Right.
mean, when I first like I was introduced to my agent by a woman that I was kind of friends with benefits, kind of dated every once in a
Mm-hmm.
while, whatever, who also happened to be, I didn't know it when I first started seeing her, a very high-end escort, right? Then I found out later and I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting and whatever, and we had a good relationship, and I'm sure if I called her up right now, we could go and have dinner and we're still friends in the whole nine.
Yeah.
But I was like, does that even exist? Like I met my agent and I was skeptical that it even existed.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that when the show came out, like you can go on Wikipedia for the Wikipedia page for the show Gigolos, and you could see you could see what people before the show had come out. Obviously, the media, the like TV critics, they get screeners, so they had gotten like a screener of the first 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
They were totally skeptical that it was real.
Oh,
They were
shit.
like, this is not real, because women would never pay. Women would never pay men so that these men would go out with it. It would never happen. This is not real. There's no such thing as straight male escorts. It's a myth, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Now, mind you, here all these years later, and it's like, it's just a well-known, it's in 24, 25 international markets. I've been dubbed into all these different languages. There's people that reach out to me from all over the world who are like, oh, your show's awesome, and blah, 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 men and women.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like, it's a thing that people know. Oh, it's out there. But when, like, in around 2011, what this book is about, Tao of the Gigolo, is me, like, really trying to explore this idea of value. And trying to explore this idea of, like, why are women willing to pay me thousands of dollars just to simply date them? Like, just to date them in a way that, like, I mean, I was dating a lot of women at the time when I was, like, single in the seduction scene and whatnot. Like, I was dating women left and right. And a lot of these women are the type of women that I would have dated anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, first off, no one has thought about this because no one even knows that it exists clearly.
Yeah.
There's something going on here. What is going on here? One, I was like, just from a totally selfish standpoint, I was like, well, if I can understand what value I'm bringing,
Absolutely.
then I can bring more of that value and I can be more successful. And I ended my career as the most expensive per hour and probably the most famous straight male escort that has ever lived. So clearly I did something right.
Yeah.
Right? Clearly I did something right. But it's in that regard, it's like, yes, it's in the context of this gigolo thing. But it's really more about an exchange of value, right? Why would someone be willing to exchange value just to be in your presence? Like, who do you need to be a person of value? Because if you're a person
Right.
of value, then there's your pocket full of diamonds. And you'll never be broke with a pocket full of diamonds. So that's what Tao the Gigolo is about. It's really about, like, who do I need to be? And then self-ownership is really like, okay, if I'm this person, how can I interact with strangers, and how can we get along peacefully, and how can I be a positive influence on the world? And then what does a culture of people who hold those principles look like? And then this next book, so like I've already started the outline and several of the essays for this next book, which is going to be Render Unto Caesar, which is this idea of like, okay, now how do we make the transition? What is the moral place that we start from? What is the mindset that we start from? And so for me, like, that's going to take a lot of bandwidth.
Yeah.
You know, that's going to take a lot of bandwidth, especially the fact that now, you know, when I wrote both Tao the Gigolo and self-ownership, it was like I had a lot of free time on my hands. Let's just put it like that. You know what I mean? A lot of free time on my hands, and my life was different. I didn't have the family life that I have now. I wasn't a CTO of a venture-backed company. Like, so I think that's a way to be significant, right? To be signal instead of noise. And to not just, I know that people are sad about the show going away, because I know for a fact that there are at least some people watching right now who, after every show, would get a dopamine hit from realizing that they are one of the few people who have whatever knowledge was dropped by either us or by the guests. That they were in on a secret club and some secret knowledge, and so they got a dopamine hit. And that was enough. Just like watching Alex Jones. Like, that was enough to just be like, well, I know. And you don't know. So, dopamine. Pow! I'm better than you.
Yep. I heard something, actually, when you were saying that. I heard something, and I didn't know really what to think of it. But now, after hearing what you just said and listening to this, or participating in this last show, it hits me. And it's this quote here: "You cannot know and be at the same time."
Kill the noise, hear the signal.
Yep.
That's because the signal is the thing about it is the signal is there. And what's so interesting about this signal concept is this is really an Austrian economics concept. Like, this is Hayek. This is what Hayek won the Nobel Prize for, this idea of price signaling. And the idea behind price signaling is the fundamental, like, basic idea is no one, the underlying assumption that you take as self-evident is no one knows everything.
Yeah.
No one has all the answers. That's the fundamental first principle of Hayek's idea of price signaling. And that underlies what free marketeers are promoting. The idea is that's why central planning can't work. That's why socialism can't work. Because no one knows everything. But everyone combined knows everything. That's the thing. Everyone knows everything that is known. Think about that. That's self-evident.
Yeah.
Like, if you took all the knowledge in all of the human brains combined, you would have the sum total of all human knowledge. That's like self-evident.
Yep.
But it's also self-evident that no one individual or group of individuals, even if it's 1 million brains, can represent the total knowledge, desires, wishes, and understanding of all the brains currently in existence.
And once you start going through the experience and being something, everything that you know starts to change because new things are starting to develop. So that's the perfect example of a vehicle.
So that's a great, like, that's even a great point, right? Is that once you start the central planning, you're already behind.
Exactly.
Because everybody's
Yeah.
everybody's changing and growing and evolving. And so that's Hayek's idea with price. The idea is, no, you just look at the price. You know what the supply is. You look at the price. That basically tells you, is there demand? Is it going? Do people want this? Do they not want this? Do they want this? Like, if I do this and the price, if I make this change in my product and the price goes up, oh, that's the signal. And it's not conscious. It's not anything. It's just like, wow, if you will shut up and listen, you will get all the information you need about whether you're doing something right or wrong by if your price goes up or down. If you are valued more or less by the people around you, that is how you calibrate your behavior. But that's what Tao of the Gigolo is about.
Interesting. You know, I found this actually in the law of attraction too. I found this. I recorded a thing, and I'll put it up on Twitter at some point, breaking down the mechanics of being present, or no, the mechanics of letting go, and why that actually works with the law of attraction and with manifesting things in your life. Because if you are focused on the law of attraction and like creating something, like I need to focus my attention on this so it can become, you're not present. And the law of attraction is all about being present. So if you are focused on creating or being something, acting as if, being that thing, then it starts to manifest because you are in that frequency. You are in that present moment with that thing. You are being that. And that's the vehicle, exactly. So what happens is you let go of the things that are preventing you, and you're present enough so you can create those things, and it starts to spin faster and faster and faster and become more, manifest more into the physical instead of being an idea. You know, it's really advanced like physics and stuff like that when it comes down to it. But when you let go of something, you allow it to come in, and you're present enough to see the patterns that are there to start to create that thing. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a huge, that's such a huge lesson of ayahuasca. Is it's all about surrender. Like anybody who's experienced with ayahuasca ceremonies, you talk to any shamans, they'll be like, what this is it is a practice of surrender. And surrender is very much about killing the noise and hearing the signal.
Right.
Because the idea is, if you don't surrender and just listen, you can't get the message. And ayahuasca it's an information delivery vehicle. Like whether it's delivering it from your higher self, whether it's delivering it from another dimension, whatever it is, it's definitely delivering valuable information. That's what ayahuasca has been used for thousands of years. Right? More than the healing that most like Westerners, it is healing, but it's healing in like the Jungian sense of healing. Yeah. Or maybe the like psychoanalytic sense of healing. So that's where people get it wrong. That's what it's always been for me, is that it's always been like this, your body and your mind is sort of in this receptive state. And then you get this information that comes so fast, and in images and words and and feelings and all of this, and then you get it and you're sort of like, oh, that's why I'm like this. Oh, that's why I have anxiety about this. Oh, that's why this relationship is not working. Oh, that's what I'm really meant to be doing. Like, but it's information. And it's hard to explain, but it's in a state that you don't question it when you receive it. But if you don't surrender, you don't receive it. Right? It's like you have to be a vessel.
That. Right. A vehicle.
Yeah, that's it. You have to let it sit inside and drive you to where you want to go. But that's Miyamoto Musashi in the Book of Five Rings. He calls it the spirit of the thing itself. That he says, no matter what you're doing, like you're saying, if you're creating, right? If it's dance, if it's painting, if it's making music, if it's writing code, that so much of it And it's that zone thing as well, right? That when he says when the spirit of the thing itself reveals itself to you is only when you aren't looking forward to some future thing. And when you're just there in the moment of what is this thing? And in the Book of Five Rings, that's really what he's describing. I mean, this was the greatest swordsman of all times. The greatest close combat. There's no question about this, right? In terms of close combat duels, he killed 60 men in basically weapon mano-a-mano combat. And they were the 60 masters, greatest masters of Japan. That's unheard of. And these are to the death fights. And it was within that he's the one who developed the two-sword style, right? The sort of long katana sword and then the sort of medium sword. That was him. Before that, they fought with one sword. He was the one who developed the two-sword style. And, how do you develop this style? How do you even live long enough through all these battles? And and that's what the Book of Five Rings is about. The Book of Five Rings is this idea that, no, it's there. It's already in existence. The secrets are already there for you to have. All you have to do is be present in the moment and prepare yourself, purify yourself, learn everything that you can to make yourself ready for the spirit of the thing itself to appear and basically to almost take over.
Yeah.
And that's and I do believe that I know that is there within Bitcoin, and I know that we're seeing it. The spirit of the thing itself. And DeRose, Chris DeRose and Daniel Krawitz and Kevin Pham is another one. There are and there's an emerging group of, I feel like, crypto philosophers who are wanting to get deep in and to ask these questions, and who realize this is not just magic internet money. If you allow the spirit of the thing itself to, which is daunting. It's daunting, but because what it also requires is it requires you to also say, I don't know what Bitcoin is. And for me, those are the people that I trust in this space. That's particularly what attracted me to Chris DeRose, to Daniel Krawitz. It's these people who say, I don't know where Bitcoin begins and ends. I know a little bit about human nature. I know a little bit about technology, but really lacking. Because if you think about where this space is going to be in 100 years, we don't know shit about technology.
Dude.
That's like the Wright brothers saying they know something about aerodynamics.
Yeah.
And any idea of locking down the protocol, that's nice, but you can't stop someone from doing whatever they want to do. And if you think that the progress of technology stops, you have no basis in history. There's no technology that was just, speech is a technology.
Yep.
It's only 35,000 years old. You can't even lock a language down. Language morphed. The English language is not the same now as it was 10 years ago.
Oh. No, not even
close. Especially what's used online, like in social media. And there's a whole new language of emojis, of memes. That's a language. You think you're going to lock technology down? No. No. Humans are curious, man. And we've got, we've got kids now. I was just at this Liberty dinner last night, and you see the kids there, these 2 and 3 year old kids. Man, they're working a tablet like a grown ass adult.
Crazy, yeah.
They're popping through apps. They're skipping ads on YouTube. They're scrolling through things. They've got all the gestures right. It's like, whoa.
Yep.
You think they're going to be satisfied with anything that we're satisfied with technologically?
Nope. But that's the nature of the universe.
Exactly.
The universe the universe is the definition of living is to expand. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's the nature of the universe. It's always expanding. And in order to expand, it has to destroy too.
Mm-hmm.
It's this dance, this beautiful dance that goes on. I was actually having a conversation with my wife, and basically we were talking about the natural evolution cycle, like an animal going and killing an animal for
Mm-hmm.
food. And I was like, it totally makes sense to me because the universe is wanting to expand. So I would think like if I was that animal, naturally what I would think is like, one, I'm hungry, but I could eat anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can go and I can eat a tree if I wanted to. But also if I saw a rat and I was like, that rat is ready to expand.
Mm-hmm.
And so nature is also thinking that too. And I'm not saying go out and kill people by all means, but but I think the what I'm getting at is the evolution process is a spiritual evolution process.
Mm-hmm.
The
Yes.
physical evolution process is kind of like what we see and
Mm-hmm.
what we kind of understand as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But the evolution process is the universe expanding itself.
Yes.
And that is first a spiritual thing, and then it manifests into reality, into physical reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I was toying with or trying to understand this idea of like basically of survival of the fittest,
Mm-hmm.
and understanding like what is going on there on the nature side,
Well, I mean, we see
what's
it. We see it in our survival of the fittest is like what, and that's yet another thing that's interesting about Bitcoin,
Mhm.
right? Is it is a model like that's I had done a tweet that I said Bitcoin is not digital gold, it's digital God. It's like the
Yeah.
most advanced and complex model of consciousness that we've ever encountered. And when I say consciousness, I mean like because our consciousness is a reflect as above so below. It's a
Mhm.
reflection of the universal consciousness because we
Exactly.
live inside all of the rules that are
Mhm.
set out within the universe in an inescapable way. So anything that we find, be it mathematics, be it
Mhm.
something in biology, be it astrophysics, like talking about the movement of the stars and the planets and gravity and all of this and physics and quantum physics,
Mhm.
that's all already built into us. Like
Right.
we are a manifestation of that. Those rules, that is the consciousness. And we're trying to of course we want to live and we want to expand ourselves, right?
Mhm.
We want desperately. Life
Well,
wants desperately to even get off this planet.
mhm. Well, we're not separate from the universe.
That's right.
A lot of people think that the universe is outside of us, and it's like, no, you are the universe
Hmm.
too. You
Yeah.
are part of that.
Well, I mean, to certain organisms, you are a massive structure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You've got so much non-human DNA both on the inside and outside of your body at any given
Hmm.
time. It's unbelievable the number of different species of animals that are of organisms that are inhabiting the
Hmm.
human frame, any individual human frame at any given moment, of all different types, by the way,
Yeah.
of all different
Hmm.
types of crazy, up and down, all kinds of microorganisms, and so it's like we have to start. And the other thing about it is those things, particularly like the gut flora and fauna, we know that that will even affect our mood,
Right.
right? So it's like
Hmm.
there are other organisms that are living organisms that
Inside.
are
Yeah.
not of the human species, that if you change the ratio of those organisms inside of you, what you think will change.
Hmm.
Your emotions will change
Hmm.
based on the other organisms living inside of you. And that's just real. We know that. Like, it's not even a question. That's,
And massive amounts. You're talking
oh,
billions
massive
and bit.
amounts. millions, maybe billions of
Billions, yeah.
individuals of these organisms
Mm-hmm.
inside of you that you're not aware of, but are affecting how you go about your day. And you think your consciousness is your own?
Yeah.
Like, your consciousness your consciousness is clearly also the consciousness of other organisms.
Mm-hmm.
You're a system, right? But this system wants to expand. It wants to grow. But first, as you say, like, the expansion has to happen here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to have, for us to create new things, there has to be a spiritual expansion first. I mean, you look at Bitcoin. Satoshi Nakamoto had to think of these concepts before he could build, before he could mine the Genesis block, before he could write the code. That first client had to, and the same thing goes with everybody else doing everything that they're doing in the space. And I think that to undercut the fact that this is about human consciousness, this is about expanding, and for people to participate, not to be spectators. You know, one thing that I can't stand, I don't know how, like, I can't watch, it's constantly on at the gym though, like on the TVs, so I can't avoid it, you know, especially when I'm doing cardio, but like ESPN, you know, like sports commentators.
Yeah.
As someone who's been an athlete my whole life, sports commentators, especially the ones who are like really famous, I'm like, God damn, man. Like, really? You sit around watching other people do shit and then commenting on them.
Right.
You're
Right.
kind of the worst type of human being that probably exists. Because for me, my enjoyment has always been actually playing the game. Because that's where you
absolutely.
get that's where you expand. Because the idea of playing the game, the idea of competing against others in an environment that is there, it's for evolution.
Yeah.
It's to help you to be better today than you were yesterday, and to perhaps be better tomorrow than you even are today. It's participatory. And Bitcoin was that. Bitcoin was that for a very, very long time. And Bitcoin is now becoming a stadium with people in the stands. But what all of those people don't understand is that you don't have to be in the stands. And there's also no value of you being a sports commentator.
Right.
Like, the value, you can be a hero. Do something. You know, and it could be as simple as have a meetup, introduce people to Bitcoin Cash, give them their first Bitcoin, or whatever it is, whatever your favorite cryptocurrency is. I don't give a shit if it's Dash, whatever it is. Sell something online for crypto. Learn to code. Something. Like, here's the opportunity for you to be better. Like, this is the chance for you to really do something that's really going to make a difference, but instead, there's the value of noise. And so for me, again, it's like, and the reason why this is the last show is, while I know that there's valuable signal that's been on the show, I also know myself and the temptation to bring more noise than would perhaps be necessary. And also a demand from the audience to do so. You know, explain. And that's even happened recently with this whole, like, I mean, somebody said, they're like, this brouhaha in Bitcoin Cash is exactly why we need you to be doing the show. Why? So I can add to the noise?
Yeah. Yep.
So I can what? So I can entertain you? So I can dance around like a monkey with the organ grinder? For what? So you could get a dopamine hit on this? You know, so I could make somebody look stupid or make them look bad? And then what? And then what?
Yep.
And that was my
Not
response.
effective.
I was like, nah, this brouhaha is one of the exact reasons why I decided not to do the show anymore.
Oh shit.
because it's also about that level of self-discipline, right? It's knowing yourself and knowing your demons. And I know my demons. I like to be right. I know that. Right? That little actually meme, that little meme with the guy where they say something and it's like, actually, I'm that guy. I know that guy lives inside of me.
Uh-huh.
And you catch me at the wrong moment. You catch me when I'm in a moment of, let's say I'm having a shitty day. Right? I catch me in that moment. I might give you a fucking actually. I might give you one of those because that's a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
It's a dopamine hit to be like, oh, hierarchy move. Yeah, I'm higher than you on the hierarchy because I know something that you don't know.
Right.
Actually. And do I want to be like? I know, like,
Well,
because I'm in touch with my shadow. Like, I know that I've got all kinds of people that I don't want to be inside of myself, and I can't always control them, so I need to just not give them the opportunity.
it takes a lot to understand that too. It takes a lot to really like actually so be good with that. I would say be like understand that and be good with it. And it's very interesting because we're talking about like the ego and how the ego works and how it's this like 5-year-old kid that always wants to be right and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then how people say like kill your ego and all this stuff. And it's like,
Can't.
no, it's not. You don't really want to kill your ego. You just want to be good with it. You want to be like, okay, you're there and you're going to show up and when you need to show up and it's all good. You know, we're friends. We don't have to be enemies. You know, we're
Well, you
friends.
need it. You need your ego.
Yeah. You need it. You would actually be just killing yourself, basically.
Yeah, you wouldn't do anything. Like,
It's there for a reason.
exactly. It's all about like making a commitment. It's not killing your ego, but it's being able to be an observer, even because your ego is the observer, right? The evolution is to observe yourself observing,
Yeah.
you know, and to also understand. The first thing is to understand, you know what? I'm not Mr. Perfect or Miss Perfect, whoever you may be, right? I'm not at all. And everything that I dislike in other people is exactly what's in me. Everything.
Yep.
Everything. And
You'll see that in the other person too.
of course. Well, that's why you don't like it. That's why you don't like it. You don't like it because it's exactly what you're like. You secretly don't like it when you do those things when you're not like living up to your potential. You secretly don't like it. You know what I mean? You don't. And you don't want it like brought back as a mirror to you. Because that makes you feel very insecure. Like, oh wait, am I like that? Am I like that? It's funny because like I find women are much more honest about that recognition than men are in general. It's much more often like I've had several times where women I've been in relationships with where we'll go out with maybe another couple or we'll see another couple out and we'll maybe be driving home and she'll say to me, "Am I like that woman? Do I do what that woman am I like that? I'm not like that, am I? Am I like that?" And men, I don't think men are as like we think it, but I don't think that we're really as like honest to ask somebody else, "Am I like that?" And then the question is the person really evolved enough for you to tell them the truth that like actually you're exactly like that.
That's funny.
But I do know that sure. I mean, I get a huge. I wouldn't do the whole fucking Vince Stradamus hashtag if I didn't get some positive dopamine hit from being right. But the great thing about this space, the great thing about Bitcoin, and I think what's different about, and this has been a big revelation for me, and kudos to Daniel Krawietz, right? I mean, the dude is a total sage, but like even his interview with us was one of the things where, and if you notice, like there was a question where I was like, so wait, so what are you saying that it should be about secret knowledge? We should have, and that really had me thinking, because I was like, oh, here's the environment where, like Alex Jones, of course, it was all about him predicting things that he couldn't change or couldn't benefit from except by exposing it. Right? So it's kind of like a thing where it's like Bohemian Grove, he does the thing, he records the video. There's really only two ways that he can benefit. Either he can expose it on his show and it's great content and people are like, whoa, Alex Jones, and he gets the social boost there. Or he could potentially like blackmail somebody who didn't want it to get out and get a financial reward and then keep it secret.
Yep.
Those are the two ways, right? But in Bitcoin, it's totally different. In Bitcoin, if you have some information, you can financially position yourself in such a way that you will benefit from it and that people who you might tell will benefit from it. Or if it's a more long-term thing, you can set up more long-term plays like starting a business. If you see something emerging, starting a business that will support this thing or that'll be like in the line of technologies that will, you're like, yeah, we're going to support that, but you need to start building now.
Right.
Right? Or you see, oh, this new coin is coming up. It's kind of a new coin. I'm going to get some mining rigs together that'll be able to mine this coin. And I'm going to be one of the first miners and a first adopter. Or I'm going to be, I'm going to be a dev that's working on their, core team or whatever. This is an environment where you can do that.
Yeah.
You don't have to just be a fortune teller. And so, greater than that, I think that there also is this great opportunity to support the community, which is what I'm looking forward to doing with you, that we've done with the show, but I think that we could do even better.
Yeah,
and
I'm excited for that.
Yeah, that is to be able to, whether it's in the form of apparel, whether it's in the form of, memes, design, posters, whatever it is, the types of things that can be these reflexive feedback loops for people to be able to display that they're part of the culture, maybe as a way to communicate with other people. So it's like, got the decentralized shirt on, I walk out, out and about, and you might get a little, oh, okay. Now you know.
Right.
That's signal. That's not noise, that's signal. Everything else is noise. There's the signal of decentralized. Okay, man, okay. And then you can make a decision to stop and talk. But that's somebody who might be valuable to you.
Absolutely.
And so to give people the types of tools and to help them to understand that, like, no, that's what this is. It's a communications tool. It's your own little code, your own little cipher for you to walk around and for you to be able to build that valuable community that is a diamond in your pocket. These are community building tools.
Yep.
And I'm excited for that.
Me too.
Because I think that's a real creative thing to do.
And it's actually it's really where my passion is. Like, my passion is creating those types of tools.
Well, I mean, that was when we first met. I mean, that's your brand, Art of War. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, that's huge, man. That's huge. And then, of course, working on Counter Markets, which is a project of us and, folks at Activism Post and others. And again, that's something that is, you got to pay for it. It's not just publicly out there. You got to have a subscription. And it's another good reason to go and get cryptocurrency. And that's the type of thing where we do make predictions on trends. We have predicted a lot of things that have made people money.
That were dead on.
Dead on. That have made people money. And I feel like, well, if you've paid for it, you'll probably be more likely to follow it.
Yep.
If you get it for free, you don't value it. And so, that's why I'm even trying to change up my communication a little bit to, in public on social media and whatnot, to not just give away the plot of whatever it is that I'm thinking right away, Yeah,
and that's something that this actually brings me to the major flaw, because where I started with all this stuff was through b-boying,
Mm-hmm.
and we were trying to build a massive brand with b-boying. But later, after I started studying branding and marketing and stuff like that, I realized the problem with b-boying and building a brand or building this, like, the culture's there, all this stuff, but nobody really sees it as something valuable. Although people are investing their whole life into building this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And why is that? Every b-boy goes out to a club or goes out to a
That's right.
competition or goes out to the streets and does it for free.
That's right.
Who the fuck's going to pay for it?
That's right.
You know, you can't build something valuable when you're just, I mean, there's a little piece that they can get for free
Mm-hmm.
to see what it is, to try it out, to understand it. But then the value comes from the exchange.
That's right.
And if b-boys are out there going to the club and b-boying and everybody wants them to b-boy, and then everybody thinks it's cool, but nobody's fucking paying them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a huge issue, and it's I think that now we have this pathway. We have this pathway, and cryptocurrency is really this pathway that, because there are so few barriers to entry for people to start doing what it is that this thing is meant to do, but they just need some guidance, and
Yeah.
they need some signs and some signals. And look, that's what I'm looking forward to doing. And the show has been it's been unbelievable in terms of the
Amazing.
journey. In terms of the journey. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. The other thing I want to say is that, part of why I wanted to do the show was because one person in particular, Stefan Molyneux, had fallen off and became like this giant statist, this bootlicking, Trump supporting, racist statist, right?
Right.
And I felt left this gigantic gap, because that was somebody who I had read all of his books. Those books are, several of them are masterpieces. And like universally preferable behavior is like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable the framework that he lays out in there, and like how it seems so obvious, but it's like, oh, no one has laid this out. And his thoughts on anarchy and whatnot. And so then it was a real disappointment when he went against his own principles. And so in doing this show, it was like I felt that there was this huge gap and this huge vacuum that was like, where is this content at?
Mm-hmm.
And then now I look around at the landscape, and even people who are fans of the show and people who reached out to me when they were first starting up their content, saying, "Oh, I'm a fan of the show. Do you have any advice?" and blah blah blah. Man, there's a lot of people now, and it's ever growing in the space. And I feel like what you and I can do even better than doing our own show in some ways is to like step away and free up some other people's bandwidth, right? Free up other people's podcast feeds and let these other voices come in. And if anything else, to support them. Like if they want us as guests on their show, if they, want us to, if they're doing something and they reach out and it resonates, to promote it on our social media and whatnot. And I mean, I've tried to do that. If they want any guidance on, how can I have some revenue streams? What are some things that I could do? Like, I feel like we can have a much larger impact with that than we can even with this show. So it's like, I'm super hopeful.
Yeah, a lot of great things. I'm very excited. I'm super grateful about the show, the journey, everything, and I'm in a really good place. I've got some projects that I've been working on that extends actually from a lot of the psychology of the show and stuff
Awesome.
like that, and a lot of belief systems, and a very interesting twist on the technology.
Dig it. I dig it. So yeah, we'll be promoting that as well. There you go.
Cool.
So I think, dude, I mean, we don't have a guest.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we end it early, leave them wanting more. What do you think?
Sounds good.
Yeah, so just stay on. Don't cut to me, because we may as well say goodbye together. So thank you, everyone, for being a part of this journey with Christian and I, for supporting the show in the way that you have with your eyeballs and with your voices, with your tweets and your Facebook posts. Thank you for supporting us with your cryptocurrency and your dirty fiat for the years that we've been here. It has been much appreciated, and we have so much more to give to you guys. So we still have a ton of content. I'm sure that not everybody has seen all 90 episodes of the Vin Armani Show. But feel free, take the show, go and chop it up. If you've got favorite parts, if you find favorite parts, chop it up, put it on your own YouTube. We'll share it if you put up clips. We're happy to do that. We love to do that if things stick out to you. Because again, we don't have all the information. We don't know what everybody... We know what we find interesting, but we're also the ones here talking about it. So if you find something interesting and you want to share it, we'd love to share it as well. And of course, iTunes and Stitcher, that will all stay up. So you can share that with people, pass it around. There's tons of content on there that will stay relevant for years and years and years to come. But we've got so much more that we are going to do in the future with all of you guys. And you will be seeing us again on a great many other platforms. But from me and Christian, a huge thank you. And
Thank
everybody,
you guys.
stay
Thank
free.
you very much.